Okay,
Oh,
here we are.
I love when the little red, it just pops up and says recording.
Lets you know. The Eye of Sauron.
That's actually how it feels.
Good morning.
I have a lot of fire, that's what it is. It's Sagittarius new moon, and I have a Sagittarius moon.
What does that mean? What does that mean?
Also, I will feel Sagittarius energy in the moon quite strongly because that is. Oh, we started again with this like astrology
Where are
opening.
we going?
I kind of just throw it in, and then I'm like, well, do I really know everything about it? Not really, but I just take the intuitive feeling of it. And yeah, I feel like I'm on fire actually. Quite interesting.
Yeah, there's something in this intuitive thing that interests me. Because often when anything that is seen as outside of the kind of mainstream accepted science is ridiculed because it's looked at from a purely rational perspective, and it doesn't take into account this whole universe of gut intelligence and intuition, which is really palpable and can be experienced directly, so you know that it's happening. And when you talk, I know that you mix traditions and sciences and all kinds of things, and you, from the outside at least, you seem to kind of combine all these things that you've picked up that resonate with you with this kind of intuitive wisdom, and that produces a sort of way of viewing the world which really seems to work for you.
Yeah.
I trust it. I trust it because I've seen kind of tangible results from it by putting aside any kind of judgment I might have, just to sort of see, well, what is this thing? Because it seems to work. So, yeah.
Thank you, scientist.
I'm no scientist.
I've been watching her with her tubes, her test tubes, and what works and what. Yeah, I feel like I'm on the edge of blowing up. Actually, it's quite interesting. It's a very big time. So I wanted to. I just got my card, so I thought I would just pull a card for the new moon in Sagittarius. Just for everyone, so a collective card for everyone. The energy of now. I've actually got Reiki music in the background, which I think is what's keeping me together at the moment.
So tell us why are you on fire?
Well, because it's Sagittarius new moon, and my moon's in Sagittarius, and Sagittarius is fire, and also I'm about to get my period.
Okay, so all these factors.
Transformation.
Can't see.
Oh, I see because it's so bright.
There we go.
Transformation, things are changing at a cellular level, deep healing. That's definitely happening for everyone.
That resonates. I can see that going on all around me.
Can you actually see it, or is it far too bright?
Yeah, looks like Liz Taylor on a throne.
Yeah, it's very much
Egyptian
energy, yeah.
With, something. Oh yeah, there we go. I love that sun behind, or we could say moon in this case, although it's a new moon, isn't it?
Yeah. It's an eclipse again, another eclipse.
Yeah, well, how does that work? Eclipse of a new moon, which is already dark, but I guess the eclipse is still happening.
That's interesting. I really want to get colours here. You see it?
Yeah, we can see it now. Pull back a bit. There, transformation. What does it say? Oh, is that what it says about cellular level underneath?
Yeah. So that is exactly.
Oh, when you move like that, I can't hear anything you say. Your microphone is so directional.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Right in front. Yeah, so this is really what we are going through right now, is complete transformation and up leveling and upgrading, which is why things are falling away and dissolving that no longer align with us, because our energy, our frequency is shifting. And I can speak for me over the since the full moon and the eclipse, which was the what 20, was it 29th, I think. That sort of shot me into a whole new place where I was going really deep inward into past stories of myself and having to face lots of old emotions, which is what I've been doing in London. And it just feels like I've been kind of in the dark soil ever since. And I've been having these really crazy dreams. And I've been talking to other friends, and they've been saying, yeah, it's almost like we've been in parallel universes. I don't know if you've been feeling that, having kind of really crazy dreams.
Well, I have been having
Now.
crazy dreams, but I've been sort of making them happen because sometimes I have mugwort tea in the evening, and it really does. I remember and I'm conscious of a lot more dreaming as I wake up when I've had mugwort tea. So I sort of take it on purpose because I feel like dreaming is a real process of kind of healing and fixing and sorting through emotions and the unconscious and all that stuff that's going on behind the scenes. I feel like dreaming really helps us process all of that. So I don't know whether it makes you dream more or it connects the two worlds, the conscious mind and the dreaming world, so that you're more aware of what's going on in the other. Probably that, because I guess we dream all the time, whether we remember or not. So yeah, but also I just feel like perhaps when things are all kind of, when there's so much chaos and turmoil and uncertainty and fear and possibility and opportunity going on, we're all going to be kind of, a bit more disturbed. So therefore, dreaming, like you're saying, like there'll be more dreaming going on in general, or more kind of hard dreaming, like busy dreaming, processing everything. It does feel like, it's interesting. The card says on a cellular level that things are transforming. Read it again. What's the exact sentence? Because it summed it up quite well.
Things are changing at a cellular level, deep healing.
Because I feel like if you look at society and culture as a body, it does seem like it's fragmenting into the individual cells, which are people. And this whole chaos of the crisis and the way it's been responded to and the control, it's sort of isolating everybody into their individual cells. And I think if you look at it from a much bigger perspective, it's almost as if this is how a culture comes to an end. It dissolves into the individual units of the culture, which is individual people. And then, only then, when it's completely dissolved and it's in this kind of sea of flux and chaos, can small clusters of individuals start to stick together again to create some new life form in the culture, and a new culture basically. And maybe there'll be lots of different seedling cultures will appear, some will die off, some will get strong, and perhaps that's how it will go. Yet at the same time, there is this, God, I hope deep in my heart that this transformation is coming, because the machine, what I call the machine, which is the whole sort of old system that's consolidating its power more and more, the old systems and institutions, they've got so much control now, and through the technology, they have so much ability to wield that power over individuals. And I look at the way everyone's walking around with their masks on in fear, and just accepting that this is how we should be. And it kind of terrifies me, really, because I see how close we are to some totalitarian hell. I mean, it's all the infrastructure's in place. So there's kind of these two things happening at once. Possibility of, something far beyond the dreams of any dictator that's ever lived, and far beyond the worst nightmares of all the great kind of thinkers or writers like Orwell, and their ilk. So, but I'm obviously going for the transformation angle, and flying the flag. Me, you, and the hobbits. I keep coming back to the Lord of the Rings, but it's so sort of right for these times.
Yeah, we're gonna have to.
It seems like the power in the East, and I don't mean China. I mean in Lord of the Rings. The Dark Lord, the Eye, the all-seeing Eye. It's so strong right now, but then strong, but perhaps in that kind of arrogance and hubris and kind of, the immensity of that power, maybe it doesn't see that it's got a weakness as well, that it's very, very vulnerable as well, and that, a couple of little hobbits and a very kind of broken, shadowy character called Gollum might just sneak through and...
Gollum, I love him.
Gollum.
Gosh, he's such a challenge for me. I really, watching that film, I was just like, oh, I can't accept you. And then I was like, I love you. And I can't accept. It was like I was having that shadow.
He's totally the shadow, though, isn't he? He has to be integrated. And that's because just now it's occurring to me, if you look at that, the three of them, the triumvirate of Frodo, Sam, and Gollum. Sam's like, the sort of sunny, the daylight side, that kind of the best in Frodo, and Gollum is the shadow, and he has to reconcile them both. He has to kind of make it work, and they're fighting each other. They're at war, those two things, and he knows he has to kind of take them all with him. And it's such a powerful metaphor. You can't. You're tied into all of that. You can't leave behind those dark parts or destroy it or get rid of it, because it's a necessary part, because you can't complete the goal, the mission, without integrating that. You need the help of that part of you to kind of get to to Mount Doom and, do the thing.
Oh, what it's called?
Mount Doom, yeah, not that original. I mean, he was great with language and words and coming up with names, but Mount Doom's...
Sure.
Yeah, that's the whole thing.
What was the place called? Because that was much more romantic but
what, Mordor?
Yeah, that's it. Mordor.
Oh! Yeah, I think, there's some brilliant names.
Mount Doom, yeah.
But Mount Doom is a bit kind of...
Maybe they needed to maybe he felt like it maybe needed to be a little lighter. It was
but also it's time, isn't it? When he wrote that, maybe Doom was the word, and it was powerful. We're like 100 years later or something. So
we sort of ruined it through.
Well, language changes all the time, doesn't it? It's a living thing.
Very much humorized. I remember as a child being like, you're doomed. All of that, like, sort of...
Yeah, it's lost its power.
Yeah.
It's lost its power.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because something like terrible, word like terrible, we use it, it's such a kind of harmless word now. But really what it means is kind of super intense. Something that's terrible is overwhelming.
Was it Ivan the Terrible?
Yeah, and now it's like, he's been a naughty boy.
I know, I remember when I went to Moscow and I was like, Ivan the Terrible, really? And they were like, yeah, he was absolutely bloodthirsty, horrific person. I was like, I know, but can't we get a better word? But yeah, of course, it used to have a lot more meaning to it and weight. Gosh, I remember seeing some of the artwork with him in it, and I was just like, yeah.
There's a brilliant one. Oh, what's he called? Repin, I think he's called. And I'm not sure how you pronounce his name. Repin. He's a Russian painter. There's a portrait of, I think it's Ivan the Terrible holding his son who's just been murdered.
This might be the
Just
one that
the intensity of the look in his face. It's an incredible painting.
What was it? Look it up.
I think he's called Ilya, Ilya Repin, or Repin, Repin. But Ivan the Terrible as well, and you might get that image. It's like an old man on his knees, and I think.
Yes, I remember this.
Did you actually see it, the real painting? Wow, I'd love to see it. Where is it? In Moscow?
Yeah. Hold on. Paintings, Ivan.
Is it with his son, or did I make that up? I remember the old man sort of on his knees.
Yeah, why can't I see? Okay,
but I can't remember.
Yes, they're holding one another.
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah.
He's a brilliant painter.
Oh, yeah, his eye.
I know, his eyes.
Oh, wow.
What a look. It's incredible, isn't it?
Oh, my goodness me.
Oh, we can't see it. It doesn't work on the screen, babe. Oh, you get it a little bit. Wow, it's like a skull from that angle. Yeah. That's it. That's it. Yeah.
Is it?
Well, people can look it up anyway and see it.
I get so excited. I've got to share it. It's terrifying. Honestly, I look at it and I'm like, whoa. And that was definitely, I wonder where that was in Pushkin's gallery.
Yeah, can't remember where it is. Anyway. Hello?
I know, I'm lost now. I'll look at it later. But
Yeah.
that's just brought a whole lot of emotion through about being in Moscow. It was so deeply intense. I mean, not as intense as that picture, but it's very rich there.
Yeah, the art tradition, that was interesting because communism really fucked up a lot of things and obviously messed with religion in quite a profound way. And even art, and there was a lot of very kind of towing the party line art to begin with. But then you had, I think perhaps because there was such a deep and strong tradition of art in the culture, it somehow survived that. And you get sort of characters, you get characters who somehow managed to still produce real art that was, and often you had dissidents, writers who were writing about what was going on, maybe in a metaphorical way. And some of them kind of got locked up in the gulag, like Solzhenitsyn and people like that. But some of them also sort of defected to the West and escaped and managed to kind of still produce their art. But I'm fascinated by that, by the kind of, there's something about Russian art that has held on to that connection with what I see as the purpose of art, which is to connect us to this thing that's greater than ourselves, this mystery, this spirit, this thing, what it is to be alive. We talked a bit about that last time. And somehow Russian art, even with the massive experiment of communism and all that did, to kind of really to stop kind of people being individual and different, which is what's required for an artist, because they need to be outside of the culture, or at least on the edge, to truly be able to go anywhere and not serve the master of the state or social convention. You know, the role of the artist is very much on the edge of the village, the community, because they're communing with something that's outside of, you know, the social constraints. And, you know, they often have to kind of live in a way that looks kind of perverted or weird from your, you know, your general population. But you know, if you're following the music, if you're following the art, it takes you everywhere. So you have to be willing to be open to that, and not, you know, and to go beyond the constraints and the social norms that have been programmed into you, because they're small. That's like you're living in this tiny little world, but the world is infinite. And as an artist, you want to kind of see where your particular kind of gift takes you in that infinite space.
I feel like you just set yourself up for talking about how you got to the woods. follow the art, follow what's going on, and live outside on the edges of society, which is basically what you've ended up doing.
Yeah, I mean, it's complex. There's a bit of that. It was also a retreat and a running away. You know, I'd be lying if it wasn't that. I was in London, and I'd done London for 10 years and had an incredible time, met some amazing people. It really sort of opened me up and expanded me into a fuller sort of sense of who I was. But it also was completely wrong for me as well. Because after I left art of college and I was sort of surviving kind of as a jobbing cowboy builder, really, carpenter, woodworker, just
shopping cowboy.
Well, just to survive, whilst I did the kind of creative art stuff, which was always for me manifesting in a kind of more of a sort of installation, kind of environmental intervention way, or even performance way. It was always kind of about creating situations and really using the world as the medium, as the material, the canvas to work on. But of course, there was no way. Well, one, it was difficult to kind of integrate that into the art world in such a way that I would be able to make a living from it. And I already had a kind of slightly allergic reaction to all of that, because I always felt like art was so much bigger than this small, confined area within the culture that it was supposed to fit. And, you know, there were very strong structures about galleries and dealers. And there was a really, even then, it was just quite young, but it was still very strong. There was a kind of mafia of arts, bureaucrats running the arts that you found in the colleges, high up in the colleges. It was in the sort of media that supported and kind of talked about and wrote about art. And even in the institutions like the big galleries. And the private galleries were obviously very much plugged into collectors, and it was all about wealthy people buying, you know, whatever was deemed the kind of latest thing that would kind of give them the best investment. And all of that just seemed so not what art was in my experience to me. I think I was coming at it from a very, almost quite a political angle, like a sort of, I think that was like a sort of social angle. Like I really felt like art was for the people, and it somehow had this kind of transformative power, healing power. Like it was like that the artist was somehow given the job of looking after the community soul, and making sure that the community soul got fed, so that, you know, it would feed everybody in that profound way. I really felt that. And I, you know, in my youthful naivety, I felt like art could kind of save the world and change everything. And, you know, all the stuff we're seeing now, even back then, I was seeing all of this kind of becoming, you know, I was seeing all the environmental destruction. I was seeing how the kind of capitalist machine was just consuming and devouring everything and turning everything into numbers. And I genuinely felt that the artists, like the young artists, were the people who would like show the way somehow. And I guess in my innocence, I tried to sort of do that, but I did it. It was also in me, my kind of fatal flaw was that it was combined with a kind of lack of confidence. And there was something in myself which I wasn't facing or working through. And I was projecting a lot of it onto the world in that way. So even though there was truth in a lot of what I was seeing, it was also heavily mixed in with my own bullshit that I wasn't dealing with quite successfully. So I got to a point where I wasn't fitting in with the art scene. And after you've been in London a while, you realize, well, you're either here to get rich or famous or both. And if you're not doing that, really, you've not got any business there, because you'll just become another one of those millions of people who are just serving the machine and not having particularly great lives in terms of what I valued, which is, you know, which maybe I didn't realize so much until I moved out into the countryside, which is just being around beauty and nature and clean air and, you know, having that space and just having a better quality of life. Because when you're young and you're just out for a good time, you can handle all that grime and hardship. You know, it is hard. Even if you're wealthy, you still got to breathe that shitty air. You still got to deal with, you know, it's a super inspiring place, London, as you know, and it's full of amazing people. And that's really its big draw for me is, and all the great art, you know, or most of it in this country is in those galleries. So as a young artist, just the inspiration, just being able to like get on the bus or the tube or my bike and go down to the Tate, see a painting, you know, that would just fucking charge me up so much was wonderful. Just being able to go and access that anytime. That was really cool.
Yeah, it's really interesting, because if you are not open yourself, you will only see what it is that's going on internally. Like you said, we're only ever going to know what's going on within us, because everything else is a reflection of that. How we view everything else is a reflection of what's going on inside. And the places like London really amplify that. And looking back on my time here, it was all about trying to find my flow and not being able to, because I wasn't actually dealing with, you know, this essential kind of part of myself, which was having to get out there, kind of get past the fear, which I think we both, that's kind of both of our stories in a way. It's like I got to a point and then kind of hid, and then that was what I was always meeting, was this fact that I was like not fully expanding or you know, pushing through. And so then I was just on the cycle, it's kind of like just washing machine of getting the same kind of experience, because I wasn't pushing through it. I was it was too scary, and I feel like I didn't feel supported in a way that for me is really important. I think we're all different, and some people can just do it and they, you know, they're like, I'm doing this, this is what I'm doing. Whereas for me, I needed some sense of being supported, because there was obviously something in me that didn't feel supported. So I was always looking for that kind of nurturing energy, and I wasn't getting it. It was like, okay, well, this is not really what is going to help me. And I think because I grew up in nature, that was the energy that I wanted, was that nurturing and being held. But when you live in a city, if you're not careful, you forget about that. And I feel like actually that's a lot of what people are searching for, that nourishment, that maybe they're not realizing it. And that's why drink and drugs and sex and, you know, whatever, there's so much on offer that's where our attention goes if we're not careful, because really we just want to be feeling like we're held and supported and nourished, and all sorts of chaos happens when we're not. And that just shows just generally in the collective right now, if you're not feeling nourished, it's just this never ending kind of unfulfilling cycle, which, you know, coming back to London now, because I'm in such a different place and I've really worked on nourishing myself and giving myself what I need, and, you know, really holding myself and backing myself and kind of getting past those fears, and knowing that, you know, that's where I'm going, is expanding. I feel completely different being here now. I feel like actually I could probably jump on a creative flow and I would just go with it, and I wouldn't have, I think it's when you have everything riding on it as well that doesn't help. It's like I'm putting all of my energy, my emotions, my life on the line here, and it's got to work, otherwise I'll die, kind of thing. It's that extremism as well. Whereas now, because I've worked on myself and I feel, you know, centered in myself, and I know how to, you know, look after myself, means I can now flow with what, you know, I can see clearer. It's really interesting because as I walk around, I'm like, wow, I can see clearer. My consciousness is sharper. Before it was kind of just a blur, you know, just like, you know, because I could only see as much as I was willing to see as well, or I wanted to see. So now I kind of really feel and see something completely different. And that's quite amazing to come back and kind of realize and kind of, ooh, wow, ground into that. You know, it's all about our internal world, and our internal world will reflect out. And so that's where the saying, if you work on yourself, everything else will work as well. So it's like, you know, heal yourself to heal the world. It's not the other way around. It's not like we've got to heal the world. I'll just forget about myself.
Yeah,
it's such a key point, because we all do it in our ways, whether we're activists, whether we're artists, whether we're parents, whether, you know, whatever it is that, you know, who we are. It's all a journey that we have to go on, is to face self, and that's really what I feel is happening now, because there's so much that people are having to face that they didn't, you know, that it's just being pushed down and pushed down and pushed down, and it's all coming up now. And yeah, it's the chaos. It's the chaos that we need before the new comes, because we can't just jump from, you know, almost complete disconnection to connection. The middle, there is chaos, there is movement. You have to shake things out, like we were talking about last time with the body, getting out the tension. You have to shake it out, and chaos is a really important part of that. So I feel like that's what we're going through, is the chaos, and just being able to kind of let our minds and egos go. Just go, okay, with this greater energy of chaos is helping shift what was disconnected. And, you know, it's like going through a tunnel, and then out the other side there'll be, you know, what's coming, which is deeper connection. And I feel it. I mean, I've been like crying pretty much every day, just because of how much I can feel my heart opening. And I feel that with, you know, lots of people that I've been in contact with, and people who I just meet. I feel it. I feel people are more in their heart. Because we're having to feel right now. We're having to just let out these deep buried emotions that whatever each of us have been holding down, but as a mass collective energy, just has to like filter through us, and we've got to feel everything. And like, you know, feeling for me personally, I kind of shut down after my first relationship, which was just insane. I mean, I was like, it was just so intense, and there was a lot of disease and just chaos, and I felt really not myself, and I felt afraid, so I kind of shut down my emotions. And now I've kind of realized since then, throughout the years, kind of how much I've been trying to disconnect from my emotions, because I don't want to feel the things that are so, you know, terrifying. But then that it's actually all just energy. This is part of my journey with, you know, my sound healing and my healing. It's just been to feel the things and not to be afraid of them. Because when we feel the things, that's when the energy moves and we can actually move on rather than, you know, just hold them down or oppress them.
Well, what's interesting is that you pointed to something which seems very evident to me, which is that we as in general, I mean, I'm not saying everyone, because I know plenty of examples that aren't this, but in general, our culture doesn't have any mechanism by which people can become adults. So you find that it seems like it's like a massive, prolonged adolescence is what happens in our culture now. And I think if you look at the culture of the West as a whole, it's like it's a teenager. This is how I see the whole thing. I feel like we've reached the end of those teenage years where everything we're doing doesn't work, where all our teenage ways are so toxic and kind of self-terminating. If we follow through, if we keep on going, it will kill us. It's like that. It's like you've reached that crisis where the teenager has to die so that the adult can then be born. And the teenager is all kind of self-obsessed and, you know, just out for gratification and doesn't really have a sense of other or, you know, other community or any kind of sense of joining with others and losing a bit of that kind of independence in order to kind of do something on a bigger level in a whole different way, you know, or take on that responsibility that adulthood requires. So I feel like, as well as in individuals, there is this kind of, now it's getting harder and harder to maintain those juvenile lifestyles. And cities are especially, it seems to be happening in people in cities more than it does in people in the countryside. From what I can see, there's more chance of you becoming an adult if you grow up in the countryside than in the city. It just seems to be how it is, because cities really indulge a lot of the addictions and kind of gratification that keeps you in that realm. You know, indeed, it's how most of the money is made there. So, you know, it's kind of economically built in that you have to keep doing those things so that the whole machine can run. But I really, you know, and then you take all of that kind of childhood trauma that isn't integrated, or all that shadow stuff that isn't integrated and, you know, is expressed through addictions. And our entire culture is just is overdosing on addictions now. And since social media came in, which is like the ultimate drug, which it's as if now the whole of our culture is addicted to social media. Well, not as if, it looks very much like that's what's happening. And it's a totally destructive drug. It's dissolving, it's polarizing, it's fucked up the media, it's fucked up politics. I mean, it was already, all those things were already going down that route anyway. So it's this real sense of this massive teenage crisis. You know, it's almost like humanity is having a teenage crisis now.
Yeah.
and it needs to die, the teenager, so that the adult can be born, so we can, and it's a massive, massive change. Those two things are not the same. So it's not like, oh, you can fix it by this or by that, or, you know, have your great reset, or your any of those plans that exist now. It's all bullshit, because none of that's going to work. What's the only thing that can happen is that we go through this complete transformation, and we have a totally different view of how we're doing things in the world. And the focus becomes more about taking care of everyone, taking care of the earth, maximizing all our kind of technological prowess to make things work really well. And that means changing everything, really, because this kind of profit motive based capitalist culture is totally self-terminating, and we're hurtling off that cliff right now. We have to kill it somehow. We have to kill it. And I suppose in that individual way, everyone has to go through this kind of crisis and transformation themselves, so that the cellular units of the culture have changed, and therefore everything's changed.
Cellular level healing.
That's it. So, you know, it's like that, but we're in the really uncomfortable place of the crisis is in its kind of fullness, and we're not yet through, and it's deeply uncomfortable. And a lot of what we're seeing with this whole insane, to me, response to the virus is a symptom of that, is that we're just kind of, it's all happening, you know, it's all happening. And the powers, the way they're responding, and this grab for power that's happening, and the grab of wealth from the ones who are already wealthy and hold all the money, who are getting even more, and the pulling of that wealth away from everybody else, and how that's driving people into crisis. And there's no work anymore, because really there isn't enough work to go around anymore, because the technology has made it so we don't actually need to be working. And yet, because of the way we're organized, you still do to survive. So
yeah, that's
this fucked up thing, like you have to work to survive, yet there's no work. So a massive amount, especially, you know, anyone who's like 20 now, what the fuck prospects have they got for, you know, there's so few jobs, and most of them are bullshit, or, you know, or it's, you're just sat in front of a computer. It's kind of it, you know. Yeah, there's still,
you're gonna pull your head out.
we still need plumbers and, you know, and all of that.
Pull your head out of the shit for a minute, because no, but
But all those people don't get paid as well. All your plumbers, all the kind of people who you need to run society, like your nurses and your teachers, they get treated like shit. They get paid nothing. They have terrible working hours. So it's totally fucked up. It's totally the wrong way around.
This is where community is really, this is where we have to go back to that tribal way of living, honestly. It's like we've got to this point of progress is not progress. Progress is backing up on itself and destroying. This is what happens. And it's like, it's showing us the way as well. There's just so much obsession with controlling everything. It's like, just listen to what's happening. What is happening? You know, it's all breaking down. Do we have to listen to that? That's just what I feel. It's like there's no point pushing it anymore. It's so tiring. And I feel like the people, the kids who are coming through now, they're the ones who have the energy to show the way, to support this new system, whatever that's going to look like, to be created. Because everyone who's holding on to the old, oh, it's going to go back to the same way that it was, it's going to go back to normal. No, it's fucking not. Like, that does my head in when I hear people.
Yeah, that's over. That's
like,
so
please,
over.
just let it go. I know it's deeply challenging, but it's evolution. It's part of what we've been doing for eons of years. It's like, it just, it's like, let's all just take a collective deep breath and go, you know, we don't have to be in control and force anymore. What wants to happen? What's ready to come out of the soil? What is there? And listen in and get really sensitive about that and get really, clever about that, because, it's within us as well. It's like listening to what's within us, what seeds are within us, what seeds are within the soil of everything, and tending to those things, and not getting so caught up in the madness of trying to control anything that is clearly on its way out. Again, it's this fear that we have around death as, a culture. As there are some cultures that aren't, afraid and actually celebrate it. But it's like this, this mass kind of denial as well.
It's difficult as well because we're so locked into it, and also we're so reliant on it. Look, everything that's allowing us to sit here and have this conversation is made by this system that's destroying the earth. The fact I can have this conversation on a computer with you is incredible, and it's all built from that machine that's eating everything. How and so many people are reliant on that for their living, and it's easy when you've been dropped or kicked out or you're on the edge of the society anyway to talk like this. But for those people who are just heavily invested in it, they have kids, they've got a mortgage, they've got this job that they're trying to hold on to in this difficult time. And they're working for some corporation that's destroying the earth. But what can they do? They're like, well, what can I do? And there's so many people in that position. So it's really difficult because even though they may know that what's going on is fucked up, they feel like they've got no choice but to carry on. So we're sort of locked in to this terminal way of life. And even as, it's kind of breaking up and bits of it are flying off and we're going even faster, like we're speeding up as well, even though that's happening, it still carries on. And it's kind of like there needs to be some acceptance that, okay, I can't stop that. All I can do, or how do you respond to that? I guess my response is I've just got to make sure my own shit is in order. That's the first thing. And then whatever I do after I've done that, if it's coming from that pure place, it's doing something good and right, and that's enough. And I can't, try or worry. It's not my place to worry about the whole thing, which I used to do, and that was really that juvenile position of projecting it onto the world. And I knew I was kind of on the edges of a lot of sort of protest activism and stuff when I was growing up, and it's the same with those people. They're all kind of projecting their shit onto the world, and they're trying to save the world because they're not dealing with their own stuff. It comes from a genuine place as well, of course. There is a genuine sense of right and wrong, and this is not a good thing. It's not a good thing to be destroying ancient woodland for some short-term gain. So, that's right. But a lot of what gets mixed in with that, and you see, I think, in movements like Extinction Rebellion, it's not a clean thing. And the fact it's called rebellion, it is like a sort of teenage response. And yet it's built on some valid, points like, yes, we are just fucking the environment to death. And governments are saying stuff, but nothing's happening. We've just opened like new fracking plants and things in Britain. It's like, so they're talking one thing, but the money and the corporate power is just making other things happen behind the scenes. So, it's valid to respond in that way, but it's coming also from a kind of juvenile position, and it's oppositional, and it's difficult, basically. It's a real mess, And
it's very, very complex, and it's important to sort of
it is complex.
Appreciate all areas of everything that's going on, because everything's valid. Everyone's feelings and emotions and expressions are valid. When I think valid,
yeah.
No, valid.
Maybe they are valid. Well, maybe you had it because they're all in these separate valleys, and they're not seeing the mountains over the mountains to the other people.
Yeah,
it is valid.
it's valid and valid.
Yeah.
It's exhausting as well. And yeah, all we can do again is look after ourselves and look after, you know, those around us and our communities. And I really I know in my heart that community is the way, is kind of really deeply honoring, you know, each other's gifts as well, and kind of working with that, and like, you know, who's good at this, who's good at that, you know, how can we work together as we're all one, you know, the way ants do it, you know, they all get together and they all make a lot of shit happen. Imagine what happens if we're all going the right way, you know, in the same direction.
But we're not ants. That's the trouble. We can't, you know, that's kind of like what communism tried to do. But humans are not ants, and they are individuals too. If you can't, there needs to be a collective impulse and expression at the same time as a totally liberated individual expression. And this is where it's going to be possible to move forward, is where we somehow reconcile or we integrate those two very different things in one whole, where you can be a part of some greater movement that's collective, that's community and networked across the whole earth probably. And at the same time, there's massive support for personal liberation, and you're free to be who the fuck you are without anyone telling you what to do. And as long as you're not harming anyone directly or kind of hurting, you know, kids or something, then you should be able to do whatever the fuck you want, you know, as long as it's not kind of destroying the earth. And, you know, obviously, but there should be this total sense of you're supported and even actively kind of encouraged to become your true full individual self. I think you're right. I think we'll see a renaissance, and we are already in this. There's a hunger for finding out, exploring, experimenting with community around the edges. People are doing that a lot now, because in some ways, we have reached the ultimate dissolving of community. In fact, my whole life has been watching in Britain community slowly being disintegrated. You know, in the 80s with Thatcherism, it really started to, like, big chunks of it got ripped apart, and then it's slowly been fragmenting ever since then, and technology's just finished it off to the point where we are like completely separate, ironically, even though we're more connected now than ever we were.
Yes, that's interesting, because I would say I have a really great community of people online. So there is that sense of there's a community, it's a different kind of community. Maybe it's the bridging community, because we needed to have space physically from people because it was so intense. It's like it's this energetic bridging of people again, while sort of this kind of crazy fleshy human shit is going on. It's like we're energetically meeting the right energies that we all need to nurture one another before.
Pause for a second. My phone is ringing.
Wow, so loud.
It's one of those kind of old-fashioned ones. Okay, we're back.
We stopped at 11:11, which is really powerful.
Yeah, what is it? You can talk about your numerology or whatever it is. You're always
the angels
getting excited about numbers.
Well, it's like everything's speaking to us, you know. Numbers are like words as well. And the spiritual meaning of 11:11, it's a bit of a portal, basically. It's synchronistic kind of energy where it's sort of you're accessing your connection with the spirit realm. So I feel very unified, you know, the 1111, that's a very like kind of whole feeling. And whenever I'm at 11:11, I'm like, oh, this is massive. It just feels like
you're using it. So this is something you've just created in your own kind of personal mythology. And
well, no, it's well, if you look into angels and angel numbers, So what your angels are trying to speak to you through numbers. So what the spirit realm is trying to speak to you through numbers.
But why? This is totally arbitrary. Someone's just made it up. But why would, you know, it's just because there are 4 numbers, right? Come on. I mean, it's like, it's just, it's a story like any other, right? I'm not saying you shouldn't have this story, of course, because everything's a story. All our kind of understanding of reality is a story, because none of it captures what's actually going on. So, but it sounds like it's useful to you as a tool, because it's like a trigger to remind you of some positive.
It's a trigger, and it connects you with the greater energy, because you're not just thinking, you know, in that linear way of what do I need to do, or do I need to eat, when do I need to go to the toilet.
Yeah, like, so it takes you out of the everyday.
This connection with, oh yeah, there are energies greater than me as well, which I think is so important to be allowing into your day, because that also helps you not get so obsessive about yourself and like, oh, it's all about me, da 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 da. And that's what I found, you know, meditation, angel numbers, you know, connecting through ritual and ceremony. It's basically you're opening up a portal where you can receive energy from something that's greater than, but that is also connected to you, so it's also you. But it's this you know, spirit side, because if we don't create space to connect with our spiritual side, it won't happen. This is kind of what we're seeing now on this mass level, is that, you know, a lot of people are cut off from that, and it's not part of community living and lifestyle, is to have this connection with spirit. They even church, hardly anyone's going to church anymore.
Yeah, but there are lots of people. I mean, maybe not so much in
not the younger generation.
Yeah, but certainly they are worldwide. But I was going to say it's what organized religions do anyway. They have these mechanisms through the day that allow you to connect in with this greater than self thing. In their case, a god of whichever name, you know. So if you're a Muslim and you're bowing to the east at those certain times of the day, wherever you are, that's a complete mechanism for doing exactly what you just said, where you're getting out of the day-to-day and your personal stuff, and you're connecting in with something greater than you. And it's a powerful perspective shifter to build into your day. So having those, I mean, that's why it works, I guess, or that's why it's evolved that way in religions.
Exactly.
That, you know, you say your prayers before bed, or you say grace before you eat, or something like that. That all does the same thing. It's like a kind of momentary reminder, oh, there's something bigger than me.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, because a lot of, you know, when people dismiss religion and kind of throw the whole thing away, I always feel like they're missing a lot of the kind of useful aspects of religion, which are, you know, which you've kind of found a way, and people that you're kind of have been influenced by or reading into, or these kind of movements that are arising now are kind of tapping back into that. And it's as if we're kind of finding new religions and new ways of integrating those useful bits of technology, because that's kind of what they are for me.
Yeah, it's all
tools.
Yeah, technology. It all is. It really is. A way to commune. You know, a kind of a new channel, as it were, like opening up these different channels to have a broader connection to the whole. And you take what resonates as well, and you learn what resonates, you know, uniquely with you. And maybe if angels don't resonate, you know, maybe it's, I mean, there are so many different things. There are so many things to look into, and you just follow your nose, and you just follow what feels right for you, and you can apply them and you can try them out. And if they don't work, you don't have to do it. It's not that kind of like you've got to do this one thing. And that's what's powerful about spirituality, is that you're kind of exploring what works for you, unlike religion, which is this one way in which you commune to this energy. It's like spirituality is, you know, exploring your connection with spirit, connecting with the spiritual realms, connecting to something greater, source energy, universe, you know, great mystery, whatever you want to call it. But it's really, it's very nourishing when you are open, at least, to a connection of some sort, whatever that looks like, whatever is right for you. Because, you know, when you're just simply, you know, working from a very kind of, I don't even know what you call it, just very kind of dense day-to-day daily life grind energy, it's very tiring, it's exhausting.
And
So
you're very isolated. You're on your own as well. It's kind of you against the world, isn't it?
All on your own, yeah. And that is that you against the world energy. And when you just open up to something else, it's amazing how much energy and vitality you receive from that, because you actually feel like, oh, okay. One, there might be a reason why I'm here, and two, I feel a lot lighter because I feel more fluid, like my energy's moving, and that I'm not just kind of only using a certain amount of, you know, my potential. Really, that's how it feels.
It's interesting because it sounds like you're sort of describing what I mean, religion is not the right word, obviously, but something like a religion might be in a sort of transformed way, whereas the old way was everybody, you chose your brand, or you were born into a kind of culture where this particular religion was the one that you kind of grew up with. And all of the trouble that comes from that, because if you're one thing, then it means you're not another. It means everybody else is not quite right, that they're a bit secondary, or they're all a bit deluded. You know, they don't know this is the one true God. And all of the trouble that creates, and the separation and the conflict, but also acknowledging the incredible sense of belonging that people get from those organizations. And that, finding a version of that now, which is a bit of, sounds like a bit of what you talked about when you said you found your community online. And I wonder if this new form of spirituality, where you can pick and choose bits of practices from Taoism or Buddhism or Christianity or Hinduism or something New Age or angels or whatever it is, and you can kind of build your own personal religion, if you like. It's like every person then has their own religion, but it's because it's just you as a person. And then you can find your community of people who overlap, but they may not necessarily have all the same pieces as you. And that way you can never be this kind of one group against the other group, because there's always this facility for difference within you, and therefore within your relationship. So it's okay for you to have a relationship and a close kind of connection with someone who has completely different views about something. This is powerful, because I think, this is this paradox of holding opposites within ourselves and within each other is like the next level way of being in community, where you don't all have to vote for the same party, have the same religion, because it's that that's reached its useful end, and that which is causing a lot of the trouble between people. And you know, it's a kind of willful ignorance in a way, because nobody has the one story. I mean, if we've learned anything in recent human history, or maybe even in ancient history, is that there is no one true way. There is no absolute. It's all relative. It's relative to you. It's relative to your context, the time in your life, what's going on, the people in the room. It's like science, where they realize that just how you observe something affects the outcome of the experiment. So this kind of idea that you can have this absolute pure scientific method has been debased, and that's kind of one of the bedrocks of science. So you know, it's that understanding of, or being able to hold paradoxes and conflicting or seemingly conflicting ideas within you and within your community. That is how, what I imagine our next level of human culture, it looks a lot like that to me, but that's a part of it.
Because the bringing all the multidimensionality of our experience and who we are, and actually like allowing it and welcoming it and being like, wow, what can we create with all of these?
Yeah, so rich, so exciting as well.
Ourselves,
yeah.
And not having that one definitive way, and then, you know, you get not feeling full or whole, you know, if you're not abiding by that one way of being. And it's all very much about authenticity and uniqueness and just the whole.
But perhaps important to say that also for certain individuals, having one path and going deep into that is maybe the right thing. You know, providing that they can allow for everyone else to be doing things in their way and integrate with that. There's no, because there is a lot of value also with studying something deeply and solely. I can see that too. That, you know, some practices that you could perhaps, if you've done them for 20 years in a really intense way, there's riches there that you couldn't get any other way. So I wouldn't, you know, when I say all of this, it's not to the exclusion of those other practices, but it's more about that they should be able to kind of interact and integrate and respectfully kind of accept that other people's ways are just as valid. They're just different, you know, somehow. Because there's so much, you know, there's so much knowledge and treasure that we've accumulated as a species over all these years, that throwing anything away or proclaiming anything bad or wrong, I think, is mistaken. It should always be there. Even if it's in the rubbish bin, it shouldn't be thrown away, because you may find that after 2 centuries, suddenly there's something really valuable in that you need to pull out again. So, yeah.
My fire's really spiking me out now.
It's the end.
I'm like, can I just explode?
Go on,
that was great.
Why don't you explode?
Oh God.
Burn.
And then you just shake it off, and then you start again, you know. Like the dog, like the animal.
Yeah.
Like it's like we were building and building and building and building, and the peak came, and the volcano erupted, and now the molten lava is just going. And now it's really strong, this Sagittarius energy, definitely.
There's maybe a bit of sugar in there as well.
It's sharp. No, it's sharp. Fire is very powerful and transformational when you work with it. When you're kind of trying to not be with it, it's really spiky. So there's a bit of something churning in me. But I probably just have to stop talking, because this is what happens when I get too in my head as well. Then I just I need to go and be in my body and do something else, because now you've seen my complete natural rhythm. Well, this is nature. I'm showing the untamability of the feminine and Mother Nature.
There it is.
You're just holding space.
I'm not even doing that. I'm just sitting here. It's fine.
Well, that is holding space.
Okay.
You're witnessing.
All right. Let's bring it to a close. You can go and burn.
Before I start breathing fire.
It doesn't seem that scary. There's plenty of space for that too.
Yeah, exactly.
There's no reason why you can't be firing off on a call as well.
I think it's just my head's done now.
Yeah, cooked. All right. Well, thank you very much.
I'm seeing our relationship now. I'm like, right. Like, okay, calm down.
See you soon.
Bye.